If I was to ask you to think of a classic car, you might picture something like an old MG or perhaps a Jaguar E-Type. What you probably wouldn't think of is this, the Mk1 Audi TT. However, in this video, I'm going to explain why the TT could well be on its way to future classic status. Like many cars, the TT began its life as a concept, making its debut at the Frankfurt Motor Show in 1995. Now, usually when a manufacturer turns a concept car into a production one, the resemblance is pretty tenuous at best, but not so with the TT, because aside from the addition of this rear window here and a couple of other details, it looks almost identical. It looks fabulous inside the TT too, and it feels great. This car was from a time when Audi really started to push ahead with the quality of its interiors. And as a result, despite this particular example being well over 10 years old and the TT itself being 20, it still looks and feels like a modern car, which is extraordinary. By the standards of a small coupe, the TT was even reasonably practical with a decent boot and two tiny rear seats. Unless that is you opt for a limited edition Quattro Sport like this one, which makes do without rear seats, instead gets a strut brace which reduces weight, increases rigidity and improves the driving experience. Other changes for this car are an Alcantara steering wheel and handbrake, plus these fabulous Recaro bucket seats. On the outside, meanwhile, you get an S-line body kit, a contrasting black roof and 18-inch multi-spoke wheels. Only 800 of the Quattro Sport came to the UK, making it a prime candidate for future classic status. That's not to say, however, that a standard TT wouldn't also make the cut, because let's face it, it looks just as distinctive. There is an elephant in the room here when we're talking about future classic status though, which is that the TT was never regarded as a particularly great driver's car. Now, was that the case? Well, there's only one way to find out. A big part of why people found the Mk1 TT uninspiring to drive was that rather than using a bespoke sports car platform, it instead sat on the same underpinnings as the Mark IV Volkswagen Golf. As a reminder, the Mark IV Golf was soft, unresponsive and lacking in feedback, not qualities you'd want in a sports coupe. The first thing to note is that this is one of the more focused TTs that you could buy. That said, the gear change still has quite a long throw, and the clutch could do with just feeling a bit meatier, and the steering, while far from bad, it just lacks that communication and feel you get from, say, a Porsche Cayman. Having said all that, the TT does still feel small, it still feels nimble, and it is still fundamentally a fun car to drive. As for what's under the bonnet, the Mk1 TT was available either with a 1.8 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder engine or a naturally aspirated 3.2 litre V6. The Sport Quattro uses the 4-cylinder engine with power boosted to 240 brake horsepower, and rather than being front-wheel drive like some TTs, it uses Quattro 4-wheel drive. The result is that it'll get from 0 to 60 in less than 6 seconds, so it's still a quick car, even by today's standards. To drive in gear, as long as you've got more than 2,500 RPM on the dial, it still flies. Whoa! Now, obviously today, we're in the flagship of the TT range, and lesser examples aren't going to be quite as satisfying to drive. However, you could equally argue that it was never really the driving experience that was behind the TT's success in the first place. Rather, it was how it transitioned from concept car to production with so little changing. Whether values will ever rocket like they have with things like the Jaguar E-Type is impossible to know, but with prices starting from as little as £1,000, and even the best examples like this not fetching that much more than £10,000, the appeal is easy to see. Audi reckons this is one of the standout emblems of 20th century automotive design. It's a car that captures your imagination, makes you form an opinion. Whether that opinion is that this is indeed a design icon, or simply that it's a Mark IV Golf with slightly fancier bodywork, kind of doesn't matter. The point is the TT gets your attention, and if you're talking about cars with future classic potential, that kind of says all you need to know.